We welcome to the studio. Thank you for joining me at Ekin Merino Network. I do have an intro that we're going to play. We're just going to introduce you. So give me a few seconds to just pull up that video, and we shall introduce my special guest today, Winifred Ereyi.
He is the CEO of eWireCommunications and a John Maxwell certified leadership coach. She has a double major bachelor's degree in electrical and electronics engineering, Summa Cum Laude, and a master's in telecommunications and systems engineering. Winifred is passionate about STEM education and peace building, and she expresses that passion as the president of ThinkSTEM Foundation. At ThinkSTEM Foundation, their mission is to inspire and empower minority female high school and collegiate students to pursue STEM careers by connecting them to a supportive community and grant access to resources so they can break free from the barriers to entry, retention, and promotion. At eWireCommunications, she offers paid speaking, coaching, and specialized leadership training to current tech professionals so that they can develop the leadership, conflict resolution, and analysis skills needed to successfully navigate the tech environment. Please welcome with me this evening, Winifred Ereyi.
All right. Thank you so much. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. I hear they're having some issues with YouTube, but I'm not sure what. It looks like it's live on here already. So I've known you for a while. We actually went to we're Blue Sisters. We are a OGQC. So it's been a while, a long time. But I also know that you have a powerful story. But before we get into your story, I want to welcome every one of you watching us across all the social media forum, YouTube, anyone's, I think my personal page, and also African Mental Health Alliance page. I want you to know that we celebrate and we want to punctuate that this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, but we want the entire year to be a mental health awareness year. So our focus this month is green. Like you all know, we're talking about being green in mental health. That means being alive, being fresh in things that you do. So the topic that we've chosen is post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth. And we selected that instead of focusing on the trauma, instead of talking on the trauma, is there life after trauma? Because trauma is not a death sentence. Is there life after trauma? So we want to talk to Winifred today on how she dealt with the trauma and what she's doing right now, and so you can learn from her story. So when we're talking about surviving, that's what keeps you alive during the ordeal. Surviving is what keeps you alive, what keeps you from losing your mind. And that's where resiliency comes in. You're resilient. You refuse to give up. You find coping mechanisms. But thriving is different. When we talk about post-traumatic traumatic growth, we're talking about how do you learn from the trauma, and how do you develop a different type of life? It's actually a transformation. How do you transform from that caterpillar to a butterfly? That's what this show is about today. And there's no better person to talk to us than my guest today, Winifred. Winifred, welcome. Tell
Thank you.
us
It's
a
good to
little
be
bit
here.
about your story, please.
Okay, so I love to tell stories in the present. So I want to paint a scenario to you. So it's 4 a.m. It's in early in the morning, and he wakes me up. And he raises his voice and screams, "Why is the house in the mess? Why are the kids' rooms not clean? It's 4 a.m. in the morning or 2 a.m. and he wakes me up. He interrupts my sleep. And then sometimes he says, you know what? By the time I finish with you, you are going to be on the street." This is the guy that promised to love me, the guy I met in church. What started all of this? What caused all this chaos? Beyond my imagination. As a Christian, I was caught in between a rock and a hard place. My belief system told me to work on the marriage, to stay, to submit, to get to understand what the issues are and try and resolve it. As an engineer, my instinct is to resolve problems, to understand the root causes and to resolve problems. But this was getting too much. I couldn't sleep. He would not allow me sleep. He would monitor me when I go out and when I come in. He had cut me off all finances and would just give me a stipend to take care of myself and the children. And that was not enough for the children to do anything. So basically, we were prisoners in this 5-bedroom, beautiful home. There was the luxurious car in the driveway. The lawn was manicured. But there was hell inside the house. There was no peace. It was a beautiful home, but our hearts, there was no peace of mind. There was no joy. It was tough. The kids were not allowed to do any after school activities apart from the ones offered by their school. They really did not play like the normal child who would go to a party. They didn't do any of that. And this was 6 years. This had gone on for 6 years. I'd lost 6 babies before I had my 2 children, Jean Raphael and Jessie Ann. And I'd gone through the journey of bearing them and walking through the grief, although I'm kind of a type A personality, so I don't think I really walked through the grief, but because I was a busy engineer, we were building the internet at that time. So when the children came, I was like, you know what, I want to stay at home and raise the children and run a foundation in memory of my children that had gone on to be with the Lord. And so I wanted to the name of the foundation, ThinkSTEM Foundation, and he agreed. I was writing a book called The Call to Motherhood to talk about my journey to have the children and to inspire and empower women who were possibly going through a journey to have children. So we were both believing Christians. I was going to go to Bible school, and that was 2006, and I had a car accident, and the doctor told me at that time that they felt that my hormones were not balanced because of the traumatic experience I'd been through losing the children to have my 2 children, especially with Jessica and the second, my daughter. She's now in Princeton. I've been on bed rest for 5 months, upside down in Trendelenburg position. So for 5 months, I was on complete bed rest, upside down, 45-degree. So, and straight after I had the baby, he didn't want to. We were in Canada, and he was like, "I have to go back to work. You have to come with me to Boston." And I was conflict avoidant. I didn't want any conflict with him. So 2 weeks after I came out of hospital, I just moved countries and moved to Boston. When I was in hospital, he had sold the house we had in Canada. And so I moved to Boston. I didn't even have time to do postpartum check, nothing. He didn't even give me the opportunity to actually, stay in Canada to do postpartum check. So, so I came to Canada. I came from Canada to Boston, and from Boston, we moved to Charlotte. So there was quite a number of transitions from the time I had Jessica. And so we were now in Charlotte when he was now kind of waking me up and wanting to do his business and harassing me about the cleanliness of the home. So here am I, who had left a corporate job, and now I was at home. I was supposed to be raising the kids, but now it was now more about keeping this mansion clean rather than really investing in the children's life. So when the doctors had told me, when I had Jessica Ann and I moved to from Boston to Charlotte, that my hormones were not balanced, they gave me a medication and my body reacted to the medication. I did not know my body was reacting to the medication, but what that meant was that the way he was harassed, that sleep was very difficult. It was very difficult for me to achieve a healthy sleep cycle. So every time he would wake me up, you can imagine the disruption. It would be very hard for me to recover. I will have so many sleep deficits. That's what you call it when you're suffering from insomnia and things like that. So waking me up was part of the torture so that I could, it would be hard for me to function. Waking me up, cutting me off the money, and basically just doing his business and me just being at home with the children. So I stayed like that for like 6 years until a friend of mine, I got to a place where I felt so emotionally out of whack. And so a friend of mine who went to the same school we went to reached out to me because nobody had seen me anywhere. I wasn't going anywhere. I was just in the house. There was basically no money to do anything but just to actually buy food. So we didn't go to activities. For 6 years, we didn't go to parties. We didn't do anything. We were just in this mansion. I was basically like the cleaner, cleaning the house, and because that was a cause of contention when he would come home and the house wasn't in the shape he wanted the house to be. So there was this clean house, this nice car, but the children and I, we were not thriving at all. So in 2012, a friend of mine, like I said, she called me, and when she called me, for some reason, my response to her questions made her very panicked. And when you remember her asking me, "Why are you whispering?" The guy had kept me in such a state of fear that even if he was not at home, I was kind of, my self-esteem, I was kind of a shadow of myself. So he was like, "Why are you whispering?" I was like, "Oh, I have to get off this phone because he's going to come home." And then I told her what he was doing. He was always sexually assaulting me. And that was very traumatic for me. And then when she heard this, she could not believe it. So she was like, "God, you've got to call the police." And I'm like, "No, of course I'm not going to call the police. I mean, it's my marriage. I want to save my marriage." And she was like, "Save your marriage? This guy is going to kill you. And he was very insistent that I take the medicine that the doctor had prescribed. So he was always like, "Oh, you've got to take your medicine. You've got to take your medicine." And I just thought, that maybe he cared for me. And so I was like, just, following the direction, and I didn't realize that was also making me very emotionally sensitive. So when I talked to her, she was like, "Winifred, this guy, first of all, you've got to go to that doctor and get off this medicine. You have to tell them to get you off this medicine. You have to get out of this house. You have to go to the police and report this." So for some reason, her words resonated with me. I realized that there was no way this marriage could. I realized I'd come to the end of the line, or is it this was the camel that broke on the straw? So, and she was like, "If you don't call the police, I am going to call the police." And we had been 6 years in the house, basically not going anywhere, not really being engaged with the community. So I decided that I was going to call the police. So I called the police, and when I called the police came, and they told me I had to put a restraining order on him. And of course, I went to court, but I'd not been outside engaging with the community. I was basically inside the house, or just maybe I would walk out and to the YMCA. So I went to court to put a restraining order on him, and I did put a temporary restraining order on him. But of course, family got involved. And when family got involved, they were like, "Oh, are you the only one who has a difficult marriage? What the heck? Why will you this is not our culture. You must drop this restraining order. This is not the culture. We are going to resolve this issue. Get this thing, drop this restraining order. So of course I went, and I was like, "Oh, why am I being overly sensitive?" And of course, family told me all his good qualities, and I was just totally out of sorts. So I wasn't sure what to do. I knew I didn't want to be in the marriage. I needed him to keep some distance from me so that I could get myself back. I was a shadow of myself. So, but then I thought, okay, maybe if the family can resolve this issue, maybe he would change and, he would stay where he is and I'll stay where I am and get back on I knew I wasn't back at work. I'd been a stay-at-home mom. So I was like, okay, maybe I need to go back to work and everything. So I dropped the restraining order and oh boy, that was the greatest mistake I made, because after dropping the restraining order, because when I went to get the restraining order, I told the story of what he was doing, and that was documented in the court. So when I dropped the restraining order, he came after me that he wanted custody of my children. And so he never, because he had told my family that he wanted to resolve this case between the families, but that was a trick. He did not want to resolve this case. That was just part of the legal ploy, legal maneuver. So when I dropped the restraining order, he came after me and said he wanted the children. And, the way he had treated us, myself and the children during those 6 years, 2006 to 2012, I wasn't confident that he was going to be able to take care of the children. In as much as I wanted to leave and get back on my feet, I didn't want to leave my children with him. And so the church got involved, and he told the church that it wasn't him, that it was my lawyers. It was just a web of deceit. And, I was just caught in between. Should I believe him or should I believe my lawyer? So we were in court. He fought for custody of the children for 5 years. So between 2012 to 2017, he fought for custody of the children. In 2015, they gave me custody of Jean Raphael and Jessie Ann. I didn't want to give him custody because of how he had treated me, how he had treated the children, where the children basically didn't do anything, and that had impacted their learning. And so I didn't want to give him custody of the children. So the court gave me custody and up to 2017. And in 2015, I took the children and put them in a boarding school. And that was it. So he took that to court, that the reason I put them in a boarding school was because of parental alienation. I didn't want him to see his children, that he would have to leave Charlotte, where we were, to the boarding school to see them, and that I wanted to alienate him from his children. And so, and then the judge was pretty upset that, I put them in boarding school and that the schools in Charlotte, one story or the other. Anyway, I was penalized, and then I lost the custody of the children in 2017. So in addition to losing custody of the children, I was like, I'd moved out of the marital home because I was like, the house was full of so many such nightmares, and I couldn't stay in the home. And so I moved out of the home, and I went to stay with a friend. I was just a friend from church, and I was just staying in a room. She gave me a room, and we were pretty wealthy. We had like 7 houses, and by that time he had control of the money. Remember, he was just giving me a stipend, and my lawyers basically did not really fight for me. So I went to stay in my friend's home, and the house was empty. And then he came up with this idea that I needed to upgrade the house, that if I didn't upgrade the house, they were going to put me in jail. And his lawyer took that to court. And for some reason...
Wait. Winnie, I think you lost... You were staying with your friend in a in a room in your friend's house, but he wants you to upgrade
so I left, yes. So I left the marital house. When I left the marital house we needed to be put on the market, so that we could divide the profits. But he did not want me to put the marital house on the market in an estate state. He wanted me to upgrade it. And he said that according to the court document that I signed that I will upgrade it, which was not true. But I couldn't stay in the house because I was alone. Remember, the children were in boarding school. So I was alone and I didn't feel safe. So I went to stay with my friends. So the marital house was empty.
I see.
So do you follow the story?
Yes.
Okay, so the marital house was empty. So he went to court and he said I needed to upgrade the house before I put that house on the market. And that I was an angry and bitter wife, and I destroyed this house, this very beautiful house, and that he could not sell the house in the state that it was in. And one of the challenges women who have gone through abuse is that they are processing the trauma and they are being put in front of the court system. So not only have they experienced direct violence from the abuser, they are now being questioned by lawyers, by the judge.
Right.
They are trying to control their emotions. So another form of violence is happening, and this time it is called structural violence. And most times, depending on the culture the woman has come from, my culture, Nigeria, I also experienced cultural violence because I was going through all of this all by myself. There was no sister, no Nigerian sister or somebody that was coming, working with me through this journey, coming to court with me. I was basically going to court by myself. I just remember that, I'd come from an atmosphere of being indoors for basically 6 years. So I was going through this journey by myself, and I was being questioned and just totally out of sorts. So, the judge basically did not see me. I did not feel seen. I did not feel heard. I did not feel respected. And everything he asked the judge to do, the judge would do it. The judge would be like, yes, you signed that you will upgrade the house. I'm like, I've been a stay-at-home mom. How can I upgrade the house? Where am I getting the money to upgrade the house? That did not make sense. And so, there were legal loopholes in the contract, because the contract I signed said I will put the house in a for show state. But for sure just meant to clean the house and then just put the house in an assist state. But his lawyers were able to argue with the judge that for sure meant that I was going to upgrade the house. And so the house stayed empty for like 5 years. I was staying with my friend from 2015. So for 4 years, from 2015 to 2019. So he seized the alimony that they said that he should give me. He seized it and he was using it to pay the mortgage of the house, and he was insisting that I upgrade the house. And so I got to the place where in 2019, October 4th, that was our final court date. We went to court, and then the judge said that penalized me and said the equity that belonged to me, that it should be paid to him for his legal fees and for the upgrade that he went to do on the house. So between the legal fees, between the upgrade of the house, between all the alimony he had taken, the whole concept was what you call financial abuse. The abuser does not want to give the person that I refuse to call myself victim, the person that the perpetrator doesn't want to give the victim. That's not me. I'm a survivor. Any money. So that is one way. They call it starving the wife. That is one way they come up with all these arguments so that the wife doesn't get any money, and she has to rebuild her life. So that's essentially the story. Putting my children away in boarding house in 2015 protected them from. They had been traumatized from 2006 to 2012. 2012 was when I put the restraining order on him. And between 2012 and 2015, I was in court, and it was very difficult for them. So, but putting them in boarding house gave them the opportunity to rebuild and to kind of focus on their life and get away from these two parents who are worrying. So today, Jean-Raphael is in Stanford, is in say junior, will be in senior next year studying computer science, and Jessiane is in Princeton studying software engineering. But
congratulations.
Yes, thank you. I think for me, I could not, I could not leave my children behind with a man that had not treated me right. And so that was the dilemma I faced, and so it was only when the children were 17 and 16, and that was when he got custody, that I really felt at peace that these children could protect themselves and take care of themselves. And so, and then after the court case was over in 2019, they told me to pay all his bills and all of this, which is structural violence. So the court system abused me. I'd run to the court system to protect me, and they turned around and abused me. And after that, I decided to take time to begin to process what I'd gone through, the trauma of losing those children I lost, the 6 babies I lost and buried, the trauma of of being in the house, being cut off finances, being kind of controlled, not being allowed to go in and out, just being harassed, my sleep disruption. So from 2019, I took time to really begin to process and to let go of the grief that was the trauma that had been stored in my body all through those years.
Winnie, before you move on to that, let's pause a little bit because you've said a lot. Let's try to take it and wrap that up, and then we'll move on to how you went through the therapeutic process. One of the things I want to ask about the story that you have just shared is you said that you went through it alone, and you talked about the structure of violence that happens, and especially when someone is in the throes of trauma and you're trying to make them make sense of the trauma within a judicial setting. That by itself is traumatic. But let's pick up the first one. You said you expressed this very lonely, very alone, because one of the things trauma does, or it separates you from your source. When did you realize? Was there a time that you realized? Okay, let me ask you this way: was there a time that you were connected to the community, and then you slowly saw yourself being disconnected from the community, or have you just been alone since you got married?
Well. The thing is that when we moved to Charlotte in 2004, and that was when in 2006 was when the abuse picked up momentum. So people who had seen us together felt that there was abuse always happening, but I wasn't aware of it because I was a very busy engineer. It was when I left my corporate job and started to stay at home, and he was in control of the finances. That's when I began to realize that, hey, there's the dynamic in the relationship. There was a power and control dynamic happening in at home, and that really started in 2006. But in 2006, I had moved to Charlotte and just moved to Charlotte. So I had not established relationship with the community.
I see.
So I just had moved from a community where I had a support system to a community where nobody knew me. So when I was in the house, nobody was looking for me, and there was a time where I was so I was going through such terrible clinical depression that I could barely get out of bed, and I had
Mm,
2 children with me, but there was nobody there. Nobody was there for me. Nobody was looking for me. Nobody was knocking on my door to say, "Wow, we've not seen you outside," because I had not even established relationship with the community,
mm,
with the community in Charlotte. So,
mm.
so that's what happened. But in 2012, when my friend, we went to the same high school, when she called me and she was like, "Oh, you don't come to any of our events. Are you the only one who has a child? Why you don't you come to our events? We have all these get-togethers. Why don't you come to our event?" That was when she realized that. That's when I told her what was happening to me in the house, and she encouraged me to call the police. So when that happened, that was when I filed the restraining order. My friend from my alma mater now started calling me. They were not in Charlotte, but now they started to call me on the phone to try and understand how they could support me through the legal system. But they
Mm.
were foreigners, they were in different parts of the world, but they started to call me. So between 2006 to 2012, I was all by myself. But from
Okay.
2012, when she found me, QC girls started to call me and started to build an atmosphere, build a support network around me, although they could not really understand the gravity of what I was going through. And so in 2016, they flew into Charlotte in order to really understand how they could help me. A few of them flew into Charlotte to understand how they could help me. Everybody needs a sister tribe, so I'm so
I'm
grateful for
telling you.
them.
This is what I want to just pause and highlight here is if someone is on your mind, if someone is a part of your tribe, even no matter how many years ago, and you know how you think of somebody and you're just like, I haven't seen them, what's going on with them? Please pick up the phone, or find them on social media somewhere you might locate them, because you just might be saving somebody's life. What you just said, that your sister from QC literally saved your life, you
She
know.
did.
And so we thank God for that. And so just, if it doesn't matter when the name flashes through your mind, it's probably somebody calling out for help, because deep calls onto deep. And so if it goes through your radar and you're going, oh, that person, pick up a pick up the phone, or search them, find out what they're doing, and make sure you connect to somebody, because connection is very powerful. We're not supposed to be, man was not created to be alone. We're all supposed to be part of a tribe. So now that you've cleared that up for us, thank you. In the then moving forward in the judicial system, that you had the financial abuse, and actually it was more than financial abuse, but we'll just stick with that. So when you had that, did you have an attorney?
Yes, I had an attorney. I had a few attorneys. I think one of the mistakes I made being, I call it the triple factorial polynomial, where you are black and you are immigrant and you are female. So
Mm,
being an immigrant, you do not really know how to navigate the legal system. The system itself is difficult to navigate even if you are not an immigrant. So having the right attorney and having an advocate, because I was a survivor of domestic violence. I was coming out of a domestic violence relationship where they
mm,
had been abused. So you have to understand that the way they groom you to think like them. They groom, the abuser grooms you. When I think of how I used to think, I'm like, oh my God, how did that happen? But it's those years of abuse, those years of isolation, those years of verbal abuse and emotional abuse. The person is taking over your thought process and teaching you how to think. So when I left the relationship in on May, I left the relationship May 15th, 2012, which is a day of celebration for me every year. So when I left the relationship, ideally I should have gone to a shelter, because in a shelter they have the expertise, they have trained counselors, they have
mm.
domestic violence advocates, and then they have attorneys that they can refer you to. So unfortunately for me, I did not know that. My QC sister did not know that. She sent me money. I went to a lawyer. So the lawyer, it was just me and the lawyer. And unfortunately for me, the lawyer was just, you know what lawyers are. Lawyers are into business for themselves. So I did have an attorney, but I cannot. The attorney was really not on my side. Not when you look at the result of his work. So I did have an attorney. Yes.
Absolutely. And so, but yeah, that's an attorney that's not worth his paycheck at all, for you to have gone through all of that you went through. However, here you are. And what's so amazing about your story is we're not talking about 1997. We're not talking about 1987. We're not talking about something that happened, decades ago. You're talking about 2019, October 4th, 2019. You were still in court. This was just a few years ago, right? And right before COVID happened. So, tell us about what steps you took for healing. What were your healing steps, your therapeutic processes?
Yeah, I think you see, because I had experienced the whole gamut of domestic violence, which is direct violence from my abuser, cultural violence from my community, where I was left to navigate this journey by myself, and then structural violence from the system that was supposed to protect me. I had to do a lot of work with forgiveness. I had to forgive. The lawyers, especially, because you see, for the lawyers, I was a meal ticket for them, because I was really very, very vulnerable, very emotionally fragile.
Mm,
So I had to forgive them, because basically they took my estate from me, and like I told you, we were pretty wealthy. But these lawyers, with all the continuation of cases, it was just for them to make money. So I had to go through a lot of forgiveness, and something you actually did a webinar on forgiveness, and that helped me, Dr. Merino. I used that resources. I used books. I used I went to California. I went to a Forgiveness Institute because I just couldn't believe this happened to me. I mean, it could happen to everybody else, but I finished Summa Cum Laude, I have a master's with distinction in telecoms and systems engineering. We had lost all those babies. We now had these two children. We had so many houses. We had beautiful cars. What was the reason for the abuse? It was just beyond me. The shock to my system, when you are going through trauma, the amygdala in your brain, it's firing, it's on high alert. So it doesn't allow your prefrontal cortex to make sense of what is happening, So I really had to go and study how the brain works, how the body processes emotions, So I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of prayer. While I was in court, the Lord is so good. I tell you, there was this day I was like, I'm just going to run. I am just going to run. The children, they were in boarding school. I went to the Brace YMCA. I was not in the house. Remember, I told you I was staying with a friend. So I went to the YMCA and I was just in the sauna, and I'm an extrovert. So I saw this woman, and this woman was like looking so beautiful. She had red hair, and she was looking so relaxed. And I was like, I was so broken. And I just started to struck a conversation with her. And I was like, oh, you look so good. What do you do? And she told me she was a social worker. And I was like, social worker? Oh my God, I don't want to see you people. Because he had sent a team of social workers to me during the case to say I was an unfit mother to take the children from me. So when she told me she was a social worker, I was like, okay, end of conversation. But then she said, I'm a Rotarian. And I said, Rotarian? I said, my father was a Rotarian. And that I remember all the Rotary meetings he used to go to because my father was a lawyer. So I said, I thought Rotary is a Nigerian organization. So she was like, no, of course not. It's an international organization. Why don't you come for one of our meetings? I tell you, Dr. Merino, I went to that meeting and it felt like I'd come home. And when I went to that meeting, they were very welcoming and embraced me. And I began to go, I decided to go through their website and search for what they do, their resources. And I found resources on forgiveness, resources on building peace, because I'd lost my peace. I lost my joy because of all that trauma I'd been through. So I started to use these resources. I started to listen to their webinars, go for their webinars. I began to volunteer. I began to teach peace education to young children. So I used a lot of resources. Though that's one of my tools. I was reading a lot about, how do you let go? How do you forgive? Because every time I would lie down on the bed, I would, although I was not in the house, but the memories, the traumatic memories, and they will come back with so much pain. The pain will be so much, my heart will actually beat, my stomach, I will actually feel like throwing up, and so I began to do a lot of reading, a lot of neuroscience, started going to courses. And then all that knowledge was not going to set me free. So what I did was that I built an altar. There was David. I remember there was a story in the Bible when David had gone to battle and he was winning all these wars, and they now say that I can't remember that his army is the captain should go and count how many people are in his army to win the next war he was going to. And the Lord was pretty upset and said, you think it is because of the people that you have, that's why you're winning this war. So he sent the angel of death, and then David had to go to the threshing floor. So David created this altar of sacrifice. I don't have the exact details. Created this altar of sacrifice, and he said he will not give to the Lord something that doesn't cost him. So one of the things I did was that I created this altar of sacrifice. It was a table. I put the picture of everybody that had offended me, all the pictures of all the lawyers, the pictures of my children's father, my ex-husband. I put all of them on the table. And every day I would take Psalms. When I was a young girl, I used to work on the oil rig in Schlumberger. And those days in Schlumberger, I was the only woman. There were over 500 male. And I was very quick-witted, very sharp-mouthed. I used to just talk, I wasn't very empathetic with my words. So I used to get on those guys, and those guys never used to treat me well. So those days I used to put Psalm 23 in my back pocket, and I would say, Lord, put a hand over my shoulder and a hand over my mouth so I don't talk out of turn. And that was a tool that really helped me. So I used that tool again. This time I was using the Psalms in prayers for these people that I felt had hurt me. So I had pictures of these people. I would pray the Psalms all the time to be set free from the memories, and just tell them that, I'm walking in love, praying for them, praying for their well-being. It took me so much time, just intentional prayer, and then praying for them, reading books on forgiveness. And I tell you, one day the Spirit of the Lord spoke to me and told me, said, Winifred, just imagine you are coming from work, because I used to love to eat patties. I don't eat them anymore. But just imagine you are coming from work and you've been thinking about these patties that you're going to buy, jet patties that you're going to buy from the cafe near you as you're going to get your car. And just imagine that there are ants that you buy your party and you sit down, you want to enjoy the nice weather, but these ants come and they're buzzing you. Tell me, what will you do? And I'll be like, I'll kill those stupid ants and eat my parties. So he said, that's what I want you to do. When those traumatic thoughts come, kill the ants and eat the pie. So I was like, what does
Yes.
that mean? And he said, ants, automatic negative thoughts.
Negative thoughts.
When they come, you know what you want to do? Eat those pies. And he said pies, the P stands for do something physical. Dance. I love to dance. I dance Zumba, run, do something physical. And I is listen to something inspirational. So E is express gratitude. And S is be socially engaged. So when he gave me that acronym, oh my goodness. So every time the memories will come, I even shared it with my friend and my friends, when we talk, we say, what are you doing? We're eating some pies, we're killing the ants and eating the pies. So the Lord began to equip me with tools. Kill the ants and eat the pies was another tool that he gave me. Was I used to study French when I was in high school, and he gave me something called P, which is feet, PIED. And then he, in threes, and he started to tell me that, like the P, what does P represent? And he told me, he said, you know what? In order for you to inherit the promise, you have to be patient to develop perseverance. So there is a process to inherit the promise. So that P, so every time you think of P means your feet. So when I'm eating my pie, so he actually took that P again, that my physical, and he actually debunked it. Remember that I'm an engineer, so he talks to me in ways that I can understand, and so he talks to me in terms of tools. And I have so many acronyms that he gives me. But the P, he began to tell me that, you've got to, because I was in an abusive situation, my spirit had been broken. I needed to rebuild it. I needed to build resilience. And he told me, he said, you've got to be perseverance, you have to be patient to inherit the promise. So the P in PIED, which means feet, the P means be patient to develop the perseverance needed to inherit the promise. And then the I meant, he told me, say, when you were in school, you develop all this intelligence. So your brain is all so educated. But in order for you to move forward, you have to follow your intuition, because I'm going to speak to you through the inner man. So the I represents intelligence, intuition, and inspiration. So it's similar to the other eye, so because I've been brainwashed, this guy had told me I was no good, so many things. I mean, this me that got to first class, Summa Cum Laude, but I believed him because I'd been in a relationship. By now it was 29 years, and it was either his way or the highway. So just for conflict avoidance, I will always tell him to, let's do it your way. And I did not know that I was losing my power by always doing that. By the time I needed to stand up and fight a battle, I had no power because I was always telling him to, I have to wait and ask him what his opinion is before we could go ahead. And that is how the power and control dynamic of abuse. So he told me, said that, I know you're intelligent, but you have got to start to learn to follow your intuition. in order and get inspired in order for you to gain the strength for you to rebuild. So that's another tool called PIED. That's what it is in French. So the P, I've explained that, the I, and then the E, because there were so many negative emotions. I can be dancing here and the memory will come and it will be like I want to dive, and I'm like, oh my God, where did that come from? And he told me, say, once you resist, you persist. Don't resist that emotion. When that emotion comes, I want you to process it. That emotion comes, I want you to express it. So I started to express it through journaling, writing it down, and then writing it down, seeing it with my eyes. There's power where you take what is on the inside and you put it on paper and you see it and you say, but this was in the past, so we can junk it. So so many times I'll write my emotion, how I feel, and tear the paper and throw it away and say, thank God that's yesterday's story. So the E, so P is in threes. So when the emotion comes, express it through journaling. There's so much power in journaling. Express it through journaling. Look for the promise that replaces that lie that has triggered that emotion. Express it, and after you've expressed it and release it, then you can go and execute. That means keep moving. Don't just stay and meditate and say, why me? No, go and engage with people, So that's what he told me about the E. And then the last D was, he had given me a dream, and he told me, say, you have to make a decision that you are going to be determined that this dream is going to become a reality. So that was another tool. So the bottom line of it, there are so many tools. He gave me the kill the ants, eat the pies. He gave me the PA, he gave me the triple E's, which is something else. And he just told me, he said the vision he had given me, and that's another tool, VCE, the vision he had given me, I have to be committed to that vision and ensure, it takes commitment for me and execution for that vision to become a reality, which is VCE. And so the vision he had given me when I left the corporate world was to set up ThinkSTEM Foundation to work with inner city schools and coach children, girls in particular, so that they can pursue STEM careers. So that's what I've been doing with ThinkSTEM Foundation, coaching young girls, and I do boys too. I coach them. I work with them for them to see the greatness that is on the inside of them. I have to do that with my daughter. She called me on Friday and she was crying. And I thought, what happened? What happened? And she was crying. She couldn't get her words out. And I was like, well, what happened? Did something happen in school? Did you have COVID? She cried and cried. After a while, she said, Mommy, I got a B plus. I said, you got a B plus? That's why you're crying. You got a B plus. But you see, that story is not unique to her. That's where it starts. That's where that cycle of abuse starts. Because so many times girls are full of self-doubt. A boy gets a B plus, he doesn't care. But a girl, she's so critical of herself. And I was able to de-escalate her. But there are so many children that don't have a mentor to help them process grades, so that's what I do with ThinkSTEM Foundation. I coach them, I mentor them, I get scholarship, I give them scholarship resources so that they can get into colleges of their choice. And I do something similar with Women in Technology International. My apologies, I'm speaking pretty fast, so I know you are just listening. But if you have a question,
no, I'm just waiting for you to finish your thoughts so that I could try to help us process some of the things that you have said. So we've come from the abuse, we were able to do that, and then you get to the place of therapy, of therapeutic processing. And then when we talk about mental health, people think we're talking about mental illness, but mental health is that you're emotionally well, you're psychologically well, you're spiritually well, you're socially connected, financially able to take care of yourself and support yourself. You're relationally connected. And so you took the spiritual aspect when it came to your healing. You said you set up an altar, and in that altar you were going through the process of forgiveness, because forgiveness is a process. And when did you know that I have actually forgiven? That you came to my forgiveness workshop. One of the things I always say, there's two types of forgiveness. Well, there's several, but there's two main forgiveness. There is the cognitive forgiveness and the emotional forgiveness. You can cognitively forgive somebody, but Jesus said we should forgive 490 times a day. So I've forgiven the person. Okay. So I forgive them. Father, I've forgiven them. But then the pain is still there and you still kind of, hold that thing there. So emotional forgiveness is when you can think of the person without the connection of pain to that anymore. When did you realize, or are you still in the process? I don't know where you are in your process. When did you realize that, you're free, you are forgiven?
Yeah, so one of the things, the way I realized that forgiving and let go of the past was that I could I could think about him without the pain. The pain
Mm,
had gone,
absolutely.
because in the past, the pain would, the pain, it was in my conversation, it was in my thoughts. The pain it was an ever present pain. And of course, I had to also walk through forgiving my family because I felt they were not there for me. That was cultural violence. And with my family, I was very intentional. I decided to start to have virtual birthday parties for them. And so from May 10th last year, which was Mother's Day last year, I started intentionally to enter into the space and through Zoom and have virtual birthday parties and invite them and every member of my family. I had say having virtual birthday parties because I had to look at them as human beings, imperfect human beings,
Mm,
and look at them outside of the behavior. I had to separate
absolutely.
the human from the behavior. And so when I was able to separate the human and say, this guy is a human being. And just like I hurt people, I need to be forgiven. And just like the Lord has forgiven me much, in the same way, I am a channel to extend forgiveness to him. I had to look at him separate from his behavior. His behavior
Absolutely.
was not acceptable. All that he did because he really wanted me to be on the streets as he had sworn, and the Lord did not allow that happen. But I had to now say, okay, he behaved badly, but he's a human being that is worthy of love. And so when I got to that place, that was just the Spirit of God for me to be able to separate the sin from the human, to say the sin is not right, and but the human is worthy of love and the human is worthy of my prayers. And so I remember a friend of mine called me 2 weeks ago and she's like, Winifred, you're just ridiculous. How can you forgive that guy? You can't forgive him. Even if you forgive him, I won't forgive him.
Mm,
But I mean, she's just somebody who observed what I went through from afar
absolutely.
in
Absolutely.
Charlotte. So she was like, "How can you forgive him?" But that was, in my human power, it was not possible for me to forgive him. For me to, we're talking of three types of violence, because the judge took my children from me and told me to pay this guy that had abused me. I went to the judge to support me, and she punished me. So I had to forgive her too. And it's very interesting. I'm going to be speaking. I'm a keynote speaker, and she's going to be in attendance. I wonder if she will remember me on May 22nd. I'm going to be speaking about STEM education, and
Yeah.
she's going to be one of the honorary guests. So I had to
Yeah.
forgive her. So I laughed that we have come full circle, but I had to forgive her because she hurt me. And so with each one of them, when I began to think about them, but the pain was no more there, I was like, praise you, Jesus. I am
Yes. Yes.
free. I
Yes.
am free.
Absolutely.
I am free. I'm free. And
Absolutely.
the resources were so helpful. It was really very helpful to me. So when the memories come these days, you know what I do? I kill the ants and eat the pies.
You kill the ant and it at the pie. You know what? Thank you so much. This is because it's important to know when that happened to you, because what and that forgiveness is not just about you forgiving them. It's not even just about, it's also for you. Because when you don't forgive, you're carrying your oppressor around with you. So forgiveness literally allows you to let go and let God, as they say. You let go of the oppressor so you can live your life. I wrote something today on one of the social media. I said that there's nothing like overreaction. There's nothing like somebody overreacting. There's nothing like that. There's nothing like when somebody, when somebody is hysterical about something, or when somebody is abusing or abusive or whatever it is that they're doing. There's always a reason. You might not know the reason why they're doing it, but there's a reason behind it. There's a reason why most people are acting based on their own pain, based on their own abuse, and they act out. And so when you will remember that, so I really love when you said, that he is also a human being. Not that what he did was right at all, but he didn't just arrive at that place in isolation. There is a whole bunch of things that fueled that. Do you see what I'm saying? So the one of the other things I like about your story is you stayed alive. Okay, you stayed alive. I know in some Christian communities they will tell you stay in the marriage, stay in the marriage. I am pro marriage. All right. I am all for it. But I'm also for you staying alive so that you can do the work of God. So if you're going to die in the place, it's not worth it. You don't need to die in any place. So I love the fact that you got some help. You're here to share your story, and we're not talking about you in past tense. So that is something that is admirable. Something that I'm sure the father is like, thank you, my daughter, for doing this. So thank you for your story, Winifred. You have really gifted up so many acronyms today. I don't even know. The one that's going to stick, I think, is kill the ants and eat the pies, right? And ants obviously standing for automatic negative thoughts. Now, pies, let me see if I can remember it. So pies, P is physical activity. So whatever it is, and all of the things that the Lord told you, by the way, it's all part of therapeutic process. So P is physical activities. So if you're going to dance, if you're going to exercise, if you're going to take a walk, and all that does for you, it actually secretes and creates and produces all the good hormones that you need. Dopamine, serotonin, it's all part of what you need, right? The I is for inspiration. Oh, good. The I is for inspiration. So for someone who has not even really trusted herself, or they've told her she's nobody, she can't make anything, she's going to be on the streets, and the Lord said, you will get inspiration because there's a spirit inside of you, and the inspiration of the Almighty will give you understanding. So that is right there. And then what is the other one? Pies. What is E?
Express gratitude.
And express gratitude. One of the things I tell clients is try to find 5 things every day that you are grateful for. What that begins to do, it creates other neural pathways of positivity and not negativeness in your life. And then what is the S?
The S is be socially engaged.
But can you explain that?
Yeah, one of the things that I omitted, which is really very important, is that you see when you've come out of an abusive situation, or even when you were there, there was so much chaos. You had no control. This person had all the power. You were just there. So there was so much chaos. When you get out, one of the first thing that is important, I only started practicing it after the case was really over in 2019, is to create order. So
Oh,
because there's been
absolutely.
so much chaos. So one of the things I say to do was to have a morning routine, so that when I wake up in the morning, there were 5 things I did. I made sure I did those 5 things. I created order in order to control my own thoughts, in order to give myself power back. Somebody had taken my power, the court had taken my power, the community had taken my power. But I could control my thought process by saying there are 5 things you will do. You're going to wake up, you're going to make your bed. You're going to make sure you make your bed. You're going to make sure you jump in the spot. That's exercise, physical exercise. You're going to send a gratitude note to somebody and just say, you know what, I just thank you for being in my life. Hope you're doing well. So I did that. You're going to read something inspirational, like a scripture. You are going to read something, and then you're going to drink water, because the brain, the body is full of, there's so much fluid. You are going to drink water. So I created order for myself in the morning and in the evening. So I had a morning routine, and then I had an evening routine. So because somebody had told me I wasn't beautiful, I wasn't this, look at me, this, oh, old man, look at your gray hair. Somebody had put me down for so many years. So now I had to start to see my own beauty and own my own beauty. And say, even if I'm not beautiful to you, I'm beautiful to myself. So I created an evening routine for myself, taking a shower, putting body cream on myself. My QC sister was the one that said, Winifred, make sure you put body cream on yourself for a minimum of 15 minutes. But that is called luxurious living. So she just said, you must massage your body and put body cream. So I created that routine. So I created a routine in the evening, and I created a routine in the afternoon. So that's socially engaged, being socially engaged by talking to people who had not gone through trauma. I got ideas from people and started to bring it into my life and started to put it as part of my routine. And that's the way I was able to begin to feel more like myself, begin to control felt I was in control of my life. Everything was no more as chaotic as it used to be. So that's where that social engagement, really comes.
Excellent.
I make sure I'm engaged with people daily. I'm talking to you today. I make sure I talk to at least 3 people every day, that's my best friend forever, Tosi. Yeah, oh my God. My
That's why I
QC
put it up so you can see that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So,
yes.
thank you so much for that, because especially when you talk about routine, and that's maybe another takeaway for anyone who is going through some kind of high stressor, trauma in any way, a routine, a schedule. You need a schedule in your life to keep you, because you can't really trust your emotions at that time. You can't really trust yourself so much. So you need like a guide in life. Like she even had a routine. Winnie said, get up, make your bed, take a shower, do this, whatever. You make a routine for yourself. And before you know it, you have gone through the day, and it's taking one step at a time. I want us to end with this. Like, trauma is not a death sentence, people. Just because you've gone through something, just because you're going through a traumatic event right now, does not mean that your life is completely over. There is life after trauma. It's called post-traumatic growth. It's a transformation that you become that person that you were created to be. That real you, the person that God, fashioned and formed to be the beautiful person that who you are. Winifred, I don't think we call you Winnie. I don't think that your story is over at all. I believe that it is unfolding. Even your healing is continuous. And well, we're looking forward to see what God is going to do, what you are going to, where you're going to land in all of this. I know it's someplace beautiful, someplace great, and you're doing phenomenal work. You're doing so much great work out there. I really appreciate you. You are a testimony, and we thank God for your life and your children. I hope that they also getting the help that is needed for them in terms of therapy. So thank you. And for all the members and everyone who have, commented, I tried to share as many of the comments as I could. And we'll see you next time. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this time. Thank you. I'm sorry if I spoke so fast, but I hope you got the gist of the story.
No, you
Okay.
did.
Thank you so
There-
much. I
There's
appreciate
nothing
your
to be
time.
sorry about. It was perfect. It was
Thank
perfect.
you.
You have
Thank
all
you.
these comments. You should see all the comments that people are leaving, just inspirational. They're taking notes. They're saying this is awesome. So many, many comments. about how
thank you.
they've benefited from this. Somebody just said you're beautiful, dear. So
Thank you. I need to hear that. Thank you. Please tell me all the time. Thank you.
you're
I need to hear
beautiful.
that.
So
Yeah,
I mean,
I think, yeah, Dr. Merino, I know
yeah.
you've kind of closed this, but I would like to just encourage the community that it's so important to have a support system when you're going through trauma. When I see my friend Tosin here, and you, Dr. Merino, you have been a support to me, just your courses, the content you put out. But it's so important, getting out of an abusive marriage is very, very dangerous. The time a woman leaves an abusive marriage, that's the time her life is in danger. So you should not leave an abusive marriage without counsel, without getting a support system, without possibly, going to a safe place, having a safety plan. So I cannot overemphasize this. Don't listen to my story and pick up your bag and say you are leaving a marriage. That can cost you your life. Make sure you have a safety plan. Make sure you talk to an advocate. Make sure you get some help so that you can get out safely and stay alive. So I wanted to make sure that I do not minimize that point. Mine went on for 7 years because nobody told me about safety plan. I don't want that to happen to you.
Hmm.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you so much. And if you are in danger, please contact your local advocate shelter, or reach out to us at African Mental Health, and we will connect you with somebody. Reach out to Winnie, reach out to myself. All right. And so we'll talk to you later. See you. I think we have another guest speaker coming up next week, and she's also going to talk to us about our post-traumatic transformation. Oh, this has been so good. Thank you, Winifred. And
Thank
you
you.
are receiving so many kudos here. They enjoyed everything you said. Someone said you are indeed a survivor, a warrior. God will continue to be your strength.
Thank
Someone
you.
else
Thank
says,
you.
well done, madam. Kudos to you. And so, just drink that up. That is
Thank
joy
you.
coming from
Thank
the
you. Thank
community
you.
to you.
Thank you. I
All
appreciate it.
right.
Thank you.
All
Okay,
right.
now bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
We're going to end the broadcast.